Hi, class. This is Mr. Hart. In this podcast, I want to finish off the chapter about the solar system. And to finish that off, we just need to talk about some of the other parts of the solar system other than the planets that we haven't covered yet. So let's just start with the main one, our sun. Okay. Uh, Obviously, it wouldn't be a solar system without a solar star in there of some kind. So the sun is the key component of the solar system. The sun is the biggest, brightest, and hottest object in the solar system. It is an ordinary star, and it makes up about 99% of the solar system's mass. Okay, so this is the most interesting feature right here. So 99% of the solar system's mass, if you think about it, that means if you pick, you know, an atom anywhere in our solar system, you could take any atom, there's a 99% chance that you got it from the sun. Okay, like that's crazy, right? There's all the planets, there's all the asteroids. I mean, Jupiter's pretty big. But even with all that, the sun takes up 99% of the solar system's mass. Okay, so really, it's just ginormous compared to anything else in our solar system. Okay, and if you remember from last unit, the sun is an ordinary star, which means it's a main sequence star. Okay, it's going to burn for about. It's been burning for about 5 billion years. It's going to burn for about another 5 billion after this. Okay. So that's the sun. Then we talked about the dwarf planets. Okay, so if you recall, poor Pluto was kicked out as a regular planet, and now it's a dwarf planet. Okay, so these objects are mostly near the Kuiper belt, and they do not dominate their orbit. Okay, so these are just some of the five more popular ones, some of the five more well-known ones. They're discovering lots of, dwarf planets here and there, lots of objects in the Kuiper belt that are orbiting the sun. But these are what I would call the main dwarf planets. So you have Ceres, Pluto, Haumea, Makemake, and Eris. Okay, and if you recall, the discovery of Eris was one of the things that led for Pluto to become a dwarf planet because Eris is actually bigger than Pluto, okay, which led to all the discussion, which eventually led to Pluto no longer being a planet. Okay, so if we look at the other objects in the solar system, other than the dwarf planets, okay, we have things like asteroids and meteors and meteorites, but a lot of people don't know um, the difference, you could say, the difference between what an asteroid is, what a meteor is, what a meteorite is. We all kind of use those interchangeably when we're just doing like regular conversation, but they actually have very specific definitions. So if you look at an asteroid, okay, asteroid's one of the first ones we discovered, and it's a very small rocky body that orbits the sun. Okay, kind of shown here. It's kind of lumpy. You can think of like an asteroid field in Star Wars or something like that, just like a regular asteroid belt. That's not a bad visualization, right? So an asteroid is just a rock kind of floating out in space, but it's an orbit in the asteroid belt. And historically, asteroid means star-like. Okay, because when you look in a telescope, it looks like a point of light. Okay, just like a star. Okay, so early astronomers looked up to the sky, they see these points of light, they call them asteroids. Okay, meaning star-like. And again, they are irregularly shaped because they do not have enough gravity to become round, so they don't count as dwarf planets because dwarf planets are round. Okay, so these ones actually don't ever come near the Earth. Okay, they're just orbiting in their orbit in the asteroid belt around the sun. But if they ever do come near the Earth, we give them a different name. Okay, so that's where meteors and meteorites come in. So a meteor is when an asteroid enters the Earth's atmosphere and burns up. Okay, so a chunk of an asteroid usually will come into Earth's orbit. Excuse me. Will come into Earth's orbit, and as it goes through our atmosphere, it burns up from the air resistance and the friction and the heat. Okay, so often they'll just burn up as they go through, and we'll usually see these as shooting stars. Okay, so if you've ever seen a meteor shower, that's what's happening. A bunch of little meteors are going through our atmosphere and burning up. Okay, if the asteroid happens to be big enough to actually burn up and still hit the Earth's surface, then it becomes a meteorite. So when a meteor reaches the Earth's surface, at that point it is a meteorite. Okay, so if you're buying insurance, you want meteorite insurance, not meteor insurance. Okay, not that that's a very common insurance type, but just make sure you don't get scammed on that. All right, anyways, moving on. The next object we use a lot kind of interchangeably is a comet. And a comet's actually a little bit different than both of these, or the asteroids and the meteors and the meteorites, because it doesn't come from the asteroid belt. A comet is something that comes from the edge of our solar system, or you could say the Kuiper belt. Okay, so comet is orbiting the sun. Okay, so the red would be the comet's orbit, the blue would be the Earth's orbit. This object comes from the Kuiper belt and it orbits around the sun, and as it crosses our path in the orbit, we usually see it as a comet, or it looks similar to a shooting star in the sky. And it creates bright streaks of light in the sky as its orbit passes near Earth's. Okay, usually it's made out of chunks of ice and things like that from the Kuiper belt, and you see them as they pass through. So when you see comets, they kind of look like this. They're much bigger than shooting stars usually, and they can see kind of the glow from it kind of burning up as it goes near the sun. Well, not really burning up, but as the solar wind kind of pushes the material away from the comet, we get this large streak of light. Okay, so there we go. That's the ones we're going to make distinction for. So comet, or I should say first, this picture kind of shows the distances for each one, if you want to think about it like that. So a comet comes from the Kuiper belt, so it starts the farthest away, and it kind of just is going in normal orbit around the sun. We just have a chance to see it. Then an asteroid's in the asteroid belt, okay, and it just kind of floats around there in orbits. A meteoroid, we didn't talk about this one, but a meteoroid is just when it is going to be a meteor. It breaks off from an asteroid and starts heading towards Earth. Then once it actually enters the Earth atmosphere, it's a meteor, which we see as a shooting star. And then once it actually hits the Earth's surface, then it's a meteorite. Okay, so I would make sure you kind of understand this visual, this little picture here, and be able to make the distinction between the five. Okay? All right, and then other than that, we did the homework and the scale of this solar system activity. So if you haven't done that, make sure you work with someone on that. And then if you need the distances, they are right here to work with. But other than that, I hope this podcast made sense. Let me know if you have any questions, and thank you for watching.